The next morning, Daniel discovers that Carter is missing, and O'Neill, for all his snide remarks, takes this shit very seriously.
Okay, let me talk to Miguel first. This could be another misunderstanding. Cultural differences.
There's a time for a diplomatic exchange of ideas in an atmosphere of mutual tolerance, and there's a time to say, what the hell did you cavemen do to her this time? Teal'c reports one horse is missing, along with Abu, and after some grilling by Jack, Mughal admits that the female slave trade is quite lucrative, especially with foreign women, and he offers to lead them in pursuit of Abu to try to get her back. But it's already too late, as Abu has arrived at his destination, the village of the powerful warlord Turgan. You probably recognize him. He's played by veteran character actor Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who among his many roles includes the hilarious one where he is partnered with a midget with a cowbell. Yes, that's him.
Now appear these prisoners to answer for the multiple and grievous savageries of the species. How plead you, criminal?
In 1995, not long before this episode, he was also sprung into the geek spotlight by playing none other than Shang Tsung in the live-action film version of Mortal Kombat. Sun Tek-oh, who plays Mughal, is also a notable Asian character actor, but coincidentally, both he and Tagawa appeared with Richard Dean Anderson on his famous show, MacGyver, though not in the same episode. I mention all this because it's important. It allows me to momentarily postpone dealing with Turgan, who's like some kind of evil Mongolian Mr. Rogers. He enters his yurt to change his sweater and then get down with the slave trade.
And they won't hesitate.
Silence! Or I will have you beaten.
Having fun yet? You've seen about 90% of Turgan's scenes and 100% of his character. And we're just over a third of the way through this episode.
Turn around.
No.
Slowly.
I am starting to question the wisdom of scheduling these reviews on Christmas. It's starting to turn into your father stumbling in drunk in the morning and swearing, "There's no damn Santa, it's just me, and I'm sick of you little shits," before he collapses into the tree, while your sister is crying and saying, "This is the third worst Christmas ever." In the midst of treating Carter like a piece of meat, Abu is making eyes at Naya, Turgan's daughter. In a turn that's ridiculously sad, even by this episode's low standards, Naya, born from Mongolian parents, we see both of them, we see their faces. Naya is played by a European actor. If you're keeping score, that means that the only two women in this episode admired for their beauty are white. Nicely done, Emancipation. When Code of Honor's director pulled crap like this, they fired him. But you, fuck that, you'll double down. Well, Turgan isn't putting up with Abu as a son-in-law, especially because he's a nobody. We usually hope for a doctor or a lawyer, not nearly torn apart by wild dogs less than 24 hours ago.
She will marry a chieftain, the desert warlord Chimaka.
Father, please.
It is done. Chimaka will come on the next moon.
It's 3 days.
How can you do that to your own daughter?
Well, not that I approve, of course, but arranged marriages, especially for political reasons like this one, have been common throughout human history. I mean, next to the sex slave trade we're witnessing here, an arranged marriage to a chieftain sounds pretty damn sweet. 'Cause let's face it, in this world, being a woman is only slightly better than being a woman in the world of gore. No matter where you are in this society, it's like living in a swimming pool full of shit. It doesn't mean that Turgan isn't an indefensible asshole and the situation doesn't suck, 'cause it does. But Naya is basically getting to stand in the shallow end, while Carter herself is going to spend the rest of her life doing cannonballs in the deep end. Of course, since Abu can't trade Carter for Naya, the woman he loves so much he'll even do something as despicable as selling a woman into slavery to have her, well, naturally he's not going to go through with it, right? Wrong. He sells her anyway for a bag of gold. Again, I have to emphasize, remember this. It's going to be important very soon. But anyway, this is Carter's life now. Maybe it won't be so bad. Stargate, making your soul desiccate since 1997. Let's leave that scene for something more comfortable. Anything else. In this case, Mughal offers to pay them for Carter if they can't find her. Assuming she's not fully insured, of course, because these days, how can you afford not to insure your women? I mean, you want to be covered. That's why the laws were created in the first place, to protect their women from the Gould who brought them here. And that's important. If you don't kill a woman for showing her face, how do you expect her to learn anything? I mean, that's just logic. But Mughal sees this as him doing his best within the system that exists. It's like Schindler's List, where Schindler is secretly protecting the Jews in his factory, but when the Nazis find out the shells he makes don't work, they kidnap Schindler's daughter, and he has to hunt the Nazis down and kill them in order to rescue her. I think that's how it went. I watched it on HBO while I had the flu. It's kind of hard to remember. Back at the other village, Abu is sneaking about the place looking for Naya. I mean, his heart just aches for her. Oh, I feel so connected with him. I mean, there's just not enough works that show the softer side of being a slave trader. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used that pejorative term. Of course, he is a long-term insourcing facilitator.
I have listened to the wind. You will come.
Well, when you put it that way, the whole plan makes complete sense, doesn't it? To remind us of how much we should be in favor of Abu finding happiness, the scene then cuts to Turgan threatening to hang Carter upside down with rags stuffed into her nose and mouth until she suffocates to death. Because, I cannot emphasize this enough, the best way to discourage minor infractions is murder. So Sam grudgingly goes back to chopping vegetables, but when Naya is being consoled over her upcoming marriage, she swipes a knife and a horse and makes a getaway of a good 20 yards before getting recaptured. Turgan's disgusted because by doing that, the ones who are watching her will have to be punished. And those were actually the other women. Oops.
No! It was my fault. If you need to beat a woman to feel like a man, try me.
Stargate, bravely taking a stand and saying, no, flogging helpless women is bad, and we're not afraid to say it. Instead, Turgan decides to stick his tongue down Carter's throat, but his daughter still stands up for him.
Father's a good man. He never mistreats women unless she has done something wrong.
Wow, who knew he was that nice? I mean, he's like the Alan Alda of the Asian steppes.
I have no choice. I'm not free to choose.
And you never will be until one of you says no.
That sounds incredibly simplistic, because you've been standing up to Turgan and it hasn't accomplished shit. You are facing a culture-wide inertia so powerful at the guy who said, well, that woman did save a man's life. I suppose we'll just lock her in a yurt instead of killing her for speaking. That guy is called the progressive. Change must come, but it is going to take a large-scale movement and not one single noble act of defiance. This isn't a cartoon. For Christ's sakes, it's been nearly a century since the 19th Amendment. Women in America getting the nationwide constitutional right to vote, but not really because, there's shit to do and who has time to research and your vote doesn't really matter anyway. Just like men are. We are all equal in our ability to just not give a shit. But despite it being nearly a century since then, other barriers have taken a long time to come down, and societal forces that can perpetuate gender biases. Well, not to worry, women viewers, I will treat female characters with the same brutal, frank, hurtful, mean-spirited, venomous balls of spite that I hurl at men. In here, you are all created equal. We shall overcome. But this whole thing speaks to the problem with this episode. Well, one of several problems. If Carter's going to be responsible for emancipation, it can't be her standing up. She can mobilize the others, but if they go with the old ways, if they're convinced this is the way things should be, then it's not going to change. It might not even be a welcome change for them. She can be a motivator, but she can't be their Jesus Christ. One of the goals, and I'm guessing that this is the case, but this story is so shit, it's like doing a post-mortem on a frog with 6 legs. Who knows what this aberration truly was meant to be? It wanted Carter to be nobly defiant in the face of a tyrannical patriarch, which is fine. It wanted to show women achieving their first steps towards liberation, which is fine. It wants to be about a girl defying her father to follow her heart's desire, which is a bit Hallmark Channel, but strictly speaking is fine. But those goals don't mesh properly in this story, because remember that every indignity that Carter is suffering, that's Abu's fault. He knew exactly how Turgan treats women. He was fully aware of that chopping vegetable sucking dick thing. And he still, without the slightest remorse for his actions, put her in this situation. And yet because Naya loves him, oh, that's all bygones then. The man who threatens to beat her is evil, the one who kidnapped and sold her to him knowing that he would beat her, off scot-free. The closest I've come to women's studies is catching the LGPA on cable, but I'm still guessing that's not really in line with female empowerment. The rest of SG-1 arrives outside the village, plotting Carter's rescue mission. Problem is, if O'Neill attacks, it will lead to war. But Mogal has a plan, the only downside of which is that it involves Carter getting raped, which I think we can all agree is a fairly bad plan. Instead, O'Neill plans to head in now and try to negotiate, first with goods and then bullets if things go badly, I'm sure. Carter sees them arrive to peacefully meet with Turgan and, of course, knows that there was one great thing she can do to ensure this meeting goes well: set the camp on fire. 15 generations that rug lasted, and then SG-1 comes along. In the chaos, Naya runs off, while inside, SG-1 tries to negotiate for Carter.
I have others, younger, fit to bear many sons. Enough to start your own tribe.
She is a woman of power for our people. Not only a warrior, but a shaman. She knows the spirits of our land. They tell her when it's time to plant grain, when water will be scarce.
You a rotten liar.
Turgan asks them to stop speaking bullshit at him and get on with a serious offer. Luckily, SG-1 has no prime directive, so O'Neill offers to trade a pistol and clip for Carter. Not really going to change the balance of power here, and Turgan looks so darn happy with it. Carter is so happy to be free, she says, "And please remember that this was not written by a man."
I don't blame you for what Abu did. I don't blame him either now.
Are you shitting me? Well, I was sold into slavery, threatened with death, and barely escaped being raped, but damn it, I'm just not the kind of person who holds a grudge. But he's in love, so the episode treats it as, well, it's understandable. In a show where people are transported across the galaxy by hopping into a puddle? That's ridiculous!
Is suffering the madness